Good morning, alumni, parents, friends, and fans of Georgia Tech lacrosse everywhere. I'm here in the coaches' corner today with head coach Ken Lovic. Great to see you, Ken. How are you?
Doing great, Nick. Glad to be back with you. It seems like the season's flying right by.
Yes, it is. And let's talk a little bit about the season, Ken. Let's do a quick recap here. The team is 9-1 after 10 games, ranked second in the MCLA Division One coaches poll, with a postseason berth in the Southeastern Lacrosse Conference playoff assured. The one loss came to Liberty, and one thing I want to ask Ken is so we had the Liberty game, we had the Virginia Tech game. Virginia Tech was ranked first at the time where we beat them 14-13 at home, and then the Liberty game came shortly after. What was the difference in the Tech team in those two games?
We try to talk a lot about being clean as a team as best we can. I mean, we know we're going to make mistakes, but that was a game we were not very clean. Hats off to Liberty. They obviously played a really strong game. Jumped all over us. After a first quarter sort of back and forth there a little bit, they got a nice little stronghold there in the second quarter. Defensively, just weren't responding the way we had hoped to respond. We actually did a great job in the second half. But we had just dug too big of a hole for our offense to sort of get us out of it, and we were just again not very clean. I mean, our clearing numbers again were not where I wanted them to be. We had man up chances where we didn't convert. It's just accumulation of a few things like that just all came into play on a long day. A long travel day to play one game, and again, you got to be clean, you got to be good against these top teams, and if you're not, these quality teams take advantage of that, and Liberty certainly did that to us a couple weeks ago.
Conversely, Virginia Tech. So it seems like we were like on top of our game in that one. Did that have a little bit to do with the travel component, do you suppose?
You try not to think it does, but I mean, it is. It's a long day for it's a 4.5, 5 hour trip up to outside Charlotte. We had to move the game about 45 minutes north of Charlotte, and so in hindsight, probably should have done a little better job on planning on that, and that's on me. But the kids probably won't let that be an excuse. You still got to roll the ball out and play, and we did, and we came up with a short end that time. Obviously, Virginia Tech, being at home, maybe there's an advantage there. Obviously, we were riding. That was a great game between two good teams. It just ended in our favor that time, which was nice. But again, if you're not going to be clean in terms of your performance, like against Liberty, and in some quarters and halves we've had against other teams where we weren't that clean, where we had to kind of battle our way out of that, out of our hole we dig for ourselves. But we just didn't quite have enough time in that game, and I guess it gives us an opportunity to learn a lot about ourselves, and that's why you play these top quality teams so that when you get towards the end of the season and postseason, you're prepared for that.
So Ken, I think everybody would agree that 9-1, at the first 10 games, that's a pretty good performance. So let's talk a little bit about the end of the season coming up here. We've got 4 games coming up. One SELC Southeast Lacrosse Conference game remaining. That's with UGA on April 1st. So can you tell everybody what is the difference between in postseason play with a win versus Georgia versus a loss for Georgia Tech? We're in the playoffs either way. What's the difference?
The difference is you want to get that quarterfinal bye.
Okay.
Give a weekend off, not have to play another opponent. In the postseason, it just gives the guys a chance to rest, especially after 2 straight weekends of double headers and also travel out to Utah. So obviously, if we can get that 1 seed, out of the division, the SELC, with a win over Georgia, it's a cap to how you play the SELC season. It's always a goal of ours since they've created this new division or regions, pardon me, within the SELC Division One. We earned it last year, and I think it benefited us having that weekend off to go into that Final Four down in Jacksonville. So obviously that's another goal of ours, and clearly it's a goal of Georgia's. We lose that game, then we don't control our own destiny. We would, South Carolina and Georgia still have to play each other to determine, if it's going to be an A beats B, B beats C, C beats A type thing, or, would Georgia win it outright since South Carolina already has the loss. So, yeah, there's a lot of components to it. Obviously, we're just trying to focus on, next Saturday, April 1st, and in the hopes that, we come out and, again, play clean and come in against our rival team and can earn that 1 seed.
So, Coach, you mentioned the University of South Carolina, and the University of South Carolina certainly, got off to an abysmal start. They had a rocky start last season. Their trajectory, that seems to be their trajectory of choice. Now, what would you say about Tech's trajectory this year? And in particular, how do we start out? Where do you see we are now? And what do you project for us going into the postseason?
I think it might be a tad early for that one. I think I'll know a lot more about us after this coming weekend. Obviously, with a rivalry game, we've taken it to them a few times in a row now. So Lord knows they're going to come out fired up. We'll see how our guys come up after spring break. Obviously, losing to Liberty and the backfall was playing Kennesaw last Friday. I'm not sure there's much you can take from that for me as a coach. I mean, I dove into that one and some areas I was happy with, some areas still not happy with. Never perfect, that's for sure. But I think we'll know a lot more about who we are, especially coming. We got a few guys that were out. We've had a few guys that have been out for the last couple of weeks now. So hopefully we'll be back healthy, ready to go this coming weekend against two quality opponents. And I think that'll be a good test for us to start figuring out where we are in that scale in terms of where we're rising in the postseason. Because especially with these back-to-back games on back-to-back weekends, that is what we're trying to prepare for. We did that schedule intentionally to prepare ourselves for what the SCLC Final Four is like. If we have the fortunate chance of being there, and same thing for the national tournament, back-to-back games, you've got to be prepared for that. So the schedule was not unintentional by any means in terms of how we set it up at the end, and I think we'll certainly know a lot more about who we are as a group, especially when we come back from break and tackle these two guys coming up this weekend.
So great. I think the point I think is worth emphasizing is that these are four crucial games. And how the team performs, is going to be very much like something we're going to be looking at for postseason play. You did mention that you're banged up a little bit. So any injuries or anybody that we should know about, or is the team going to go in at least with the same troops that we had at the end of game number 10?
Oh no, hopefully we'll be improved in those areas. We should have Devin Ron back. He's been out for the last couple of games. He missed Liberty and Kennesaw. He came up a little hurt in the Cal game, and so we've been sitting him for a few weeks to get him back to healthy. Will Ciro has been out for a couple of weeks now with an ankle again. It's not woe is me type thing. This is just what you deal with this time of season. Everyone's going to have guys that are banged up and coming in, coming out. So we've had a few guys on the sidelines in street clothes, but it looks like I think especially with the break this past week that we should have everybody back suited up, ready to go, especially towards the late part of our season right here. And so that's the exciting part. You want to kind of get those injuries out of the way as best you can in the hopes that we won't have any more going forward. But we should be about as full strength as we've been coming up this weekend. So that's exciting for our guys.
So Coach, last four games: April 1st, Georgia, number 8. That's an away game. Very next day, April 2nd, Northeastern, ranked 14th. That's the last home game Georgia Tech plays this season. April 7th, at BYU. Fly out to Utah, play BYU on the 7th, and Utah Valley on the which is number 6. We play them on the 8th. So for each of these games, I'd like for you to discuss a little bit about the history of Georgia Tech lacrosse and our prospective opponent. Starting out with the obvious one, the easy one, Georgia, which is April 1st.
Yeah, obviously we've been playing those guys since I guess the creation of this league and lacrosse down here in Georgia for obviously as long as I've been here in my 20-something plus years. But obviously it's a great rivalry. It's gone back and forth on runs. I think back in my first early days, it was very much back and forth each year. And then Georgia went on a nice run there for, 8 or 9 years. And then it was sort of our turn. And then we kind of swapped a couple games back and forth again. And then it sort of seems like we're back on a run here in favor of the Jackets the last number of years now. So obviously it's an in-state rivalry. We got a lot of kids on our team that played against, or played with or against kids that are on the Georgia team. So it adds a little more emotion to the game. And so it doesn't matter where the teams are ranked. It makes it a little more special this year that we have both teams in the top 10. So it should be exciting one on Saturday, and we're looking forward to hitting the field.
So in terms of history, is there one University of Georgia game that kind of sticks out in your mind?
I think one of my only shutouts actually ever was against Georgia.
Really? Wow.
Probably 15 years. I can't remember how long it's been now. It's been a while. But that was a year that we were just, I remember Wojo was our goalie and we had a strong defense and some good offense. And I want to say it was 10 or 11 nothing. They actually scored a goal, but it was waved off because they were offsides. but the guys went on to to get the game in a shutout, which I haven't had many of those, and that actually may be my only one. I'm trying to think back over the years. There are not many of them, if there are more than one, but that was a fun one for the guys, just to show the effort on both ends of the field. But we've had some great battles over the years. I mean, I think back to the days where our games were like 7-5 and 6-4. I mean, just grind out games. And now you look at even last year, I was proud of our guys last year. We were trailing at halftime, Georgia. And we came out and played just a dominating second half against them to pull out the victory and to get that 1 seed again. So hopefully it won't be as dramatic this year. That's our goal. But every time you face against your rivals, it's you throw rankings out, you throw records out, and just realize it's going to be just a mashup game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that game is bound to be a great one. Once again, April 1st, and that's at Georgia. So next, Northeastern, maybe not as much quantity of a history, but do you remember the contests with Northeastern?
Yeah, we had a big battle with them last year. Went up to Boston and played them in New Hampshire. Played them on the second day in a cold, windy day, but we prevailed by a couple goals in that game. I want to say 11-9 maybe, but the Northeastern teams, we've always had some good rivalries over the years. We've had a great relationship of getting them to come to us. And we return that trip usually about every 4 years. We'll go back up north as well and play a couple of those guys up there. And so Northeastern's again, they got a lot of engineers on the roster, very similar in terms of the style of kid they have on their team. Like their coach a lot. I think he's done a really good job with them the last number of years. Northeastern's kind of the sort of thing been up and down over the years, but the last couple of years they put together a really good product. Got a lot of returning guys coming back there on that team last year. So we'll see a lot of familiar faces, but we're, again, those back-to-back games, and we haven't had many of them this year. So we've had a couple where we've done Friday, Sunday, but, the first one we're basically playing 2 in 24 hours. We'll certainly, test the mettle of our guys. And I think we're up for the challenge.
Yeah, that's, and so you're going to play an away game, and the following day you'll play a home game. Correct. So that certainly would be a challenge. And then you fly out to Utah and play BYU. You want to talk a little bit about the history with BYU?
Yeah, it seems probably like Northeastern a little bit. There's not a long history with them. I think the first time we ever played them was, probably 15 years ago, again, down in Florida. We were sort of on that climb of trying to become a top program in the MCLA. They laid it on us pretty good, as we learned real quick. And they've always been, historically, obviously, BYU has been a storied program here in the MCLA. Always had great success in their program. And then the last few years now, we faced each other more often. They've come to us one time, and we had a good battle with them a few years ago. We've seen each other in the national tournament a couple times now. We ousted them a few years ago in California. In the invitational that we had 2 years ago in Texas, they laid one on us pretty good. And so that was the last time we saw each other. And so the opportunity to go out there and return the favor for them traveling to us will be an exciting one, because it'll be a good crowd. And obviously they're a really good team. And so, history, again, there's not a lot of it between our two teams, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 5 games, maybe. Apologize, I don't know the actual number, but either way, we know we're going into the hornet's nest out there, because we got 2 really good teams out there, and there's no dodging either one of them, obviously, in that short amount of time, in a quick turn between those 2 games. But we're, again, hitting the road like a long trip for the first time as a group. So I think the guys are excited about that. I think they sort of enjoy that. So it'll be a good one for us.
So then one of my favorite contests and very brief history, but certainly a series of 1-goal games, Utah Valley. So tell us a little bit about your view of the Utah Valley history.
Yeah, a lot of respect for that program. They've sort of come out of nowhere the last number of years. I shouldn't say nowhere, but Brian, their coach, is a fantastic guy. He's done a great job with them. And they're obviously a force, and they play with chaos. And they're going to just cause a lot of chaos all over the field, pressuring everywhere. They got athletes all over the field, up and down it. So it'll be a real challenge for us, especially coming off of playing BYU the day before. They came to us a few years ago and sort of shocked us a little bit. We weren't ready for that game, or we maybe got a little scoreboard watching when they lost to Auburn the day before, and we thought, oh, we got this game, and we just kind of walked through the motions, and they smacked us pretty good to wake us up. We got to return the favor. at the Invitational of all things, a couple of years ago, and had a good one against them out there. But again, short history, but always a good history because again, it's just going to be some competitive games with a very very well coached and solid team. So that'll be a less than 24-hour 2-game set, but again, something to help test us as we get ready for the postseason.
So that trip out to Utah, it'll mimic somewhat the postseason, the MCLA and national. So can you just tell us a little bit about what the travel schedule is like? So in other words, when do you take off? When do you land? When do you practice to play BYU and Utah Valley?
Yeah, we'll all leave on Thursday and get out there and get to the hotel and settle in that evening. No practice schedule currently. We'll probably just do some film and some stretching with the guys. Altitude isn't too bad in terms of Salt Lake. It's not nearly as high up as Denver, places like that. So I'm not too worried about getting them acclimated that way. And at this point in the season, we'll have had, we'll get a good week of practice in this week, or pardon me, next week when the guys get back. We'll get we'll get a couple in before we head off to Utah. But again, at this point in the season, you're really just trying to keep tweaking things. You're trying to just continue to get cleaner at things you do. Maybe add a couple wrinkles here and there, but for the most part, we just want them to be feeling healthy and strong and all that as we again head into that that 2-day or that 2-game set in less than 24 hours. So we don't want to tax too much of the legs. We want to make sure their minds and bodies are clean and ready to go.
Well, Coach, thanks so much. We certainly, everybody that's watching this wishes you all the best. Just a couple of quick public service announcements. I just want to mention that alumni support is critical to the performance of the team. And on Tuesday, the 21st, an email was sent out with instructions, information for alumni, and in fact, the friends and fans of Georgia Tech Cross to contribute to the team if you so desire. So those details are in that memo. Please, if you desire to do that, that's the place to go look. And also I want to mention that at the Georgia Tech game, that's actually going to be the annual alumni game. And right now, I want to make sure that we reach out to all recent players, to make sure that they are aware that that game, April 1st, at the University of Georgia, is the alumni game will precede it. And if you have any desire to play, please contact myself or Steve Laskowski or Bob Shack to get any details you might need. So with that, Coach, any final thoughts on the end of the season?
No, I think we're excited to get to it. I can't believe we're already 10 games in, but with 4 big ones left, I know the Jackets are ready to hit the field running again.
So are we all, Coach. I wish you the very, very best of luck. And remember, together we swarm. Go Jackets.
Go Jackets.